everybody. So I'm going to be showing y'all how to make a birch bark tincture. So I'm starting to get my birch prepped, and very similar to how I prep tea, I slice about an 1 to 2 inch piece of the younger birch bark that I collect from the twigs. And I slice that twig down the middle, and this exposes all of the inner bark, which holds all the pertinent constituents that we're looking to obtain. So I'm going to chop a bunch up, and then I'll weigh it out and show you how I do weight to volume tinctures with birch bark. One goal to keep in mind is, you really want to be able to smell that wintergreen scent. So when you put your nose up to your jar and you're kind of hit with that scent, that aroma, you know that you're doing this the right way by releasing and exposing that constituent that is tucked in the middle of those twigs and branches. I'll also note that a lot of these really thin twigs, I'm just kind of chopping up. I'm not slicing them down the middle because they're so small. So yeah, I don't know if you can see any there in my jar, but yeah, just know that you can do that with the pretty small baby ones. So I filled my jar about halfway with the bark and twig. Just know that, it doesn't matter what size jar you use. I just decided to fill this halfway because I had a good amount of birch, and yeah, figured, this is about the amount I'm looking for my own apothecary. Next what we want to do is weigh how much herb we have, and that will help determine how much menstruum that we will need. We are going to be making an alcohol-based tincture today. So our menstruums will be both alcohol and water that we're combining. So we have 28 grams of our herb, and we're going to be making a 1 to 3, 1 part in weight of our herbs to 3 parts in milliliters. So we take 28, we multiply that by 3. Comes out to 84 milliliters of total menstruum that we'll be adding. I'm going to do the rest of that math for you and explain more kind of what that process is. So the menstruum that we'll be using is an organic vodka. And we're also going to be using a little bit of water. Most tinctures do require a combination of water and vodka, or water or your alcohol-based menstruum or whatever other menstruum you're using. So I've did out the math here for how much alcohol-based menstruum we will need to add, as well as how much water. So we determined that there's 28 grams of total herb that we have, and we want to extract at a rate of 50%. So we want the total amount of alcohol in our entire tincture to be 50%. And we also know that the herb itself contains 40% water, respectively. We're also extracting 1 to 3, so 1 part herb to 3 parts menstruum. And that gives us 83 milliliters menstruum to start with. We then need to take this process a step further. So we take the total amount of menstruum and we multiply by the total amount of alcohol that we want in our entire preparation here. And that gives us 42 milliliters alcohol. However, we have to account for the total proof or percent of alcohol in the menstruum we're using. Since we're using a vodka, that is 40%, and if we think vodka's 80 proof, and half of that is 40% total alcohol in any given amount that we have. So we take 42, we divide that by 40.40, and that gives us 105 milliliters total alcohol menstruum that we will want to add to our tincture. Oh, and I also want to mention that I determined the total amount of water in milliliters in the entire amount of plant material we have is 11.2. Now you need to calculate this because at the end of doing this math here, we want to determine how much total water we're adding. And we always want to account for the water that is already in the plant. So we know the total amount of alcohol menstruum we're adding, but then we need to take the total amount that was determined here, 42, and subtract that to get how much water we would want to add. But then, of course, we need to account for the 11.2, which is already predetermined from that calculation that we did here in the beginning. So the total amount of water that we add is 51.8, and the total amount of alcohol-based menstruum that we're adding is 105 milliliters. So now I'm going to be adding my menstruums. I changed the unit to milliliters here in my scale, and let's go ahead and add our alcohol. So I've added our alcohol in here. Now let's go ahead and add the water. So I have our menstruum all in with our herbs. I'm gonna put a lid on it and then I'm gonna give it a really good shake. So I've added the total amount of alcohol, the ratio, and the date. And in 4 to 6 weeks, it'll be ready to strain and ingest. So here we have our final tincture that will sit on the shelf for 4 to 6 weeks. So if you wanted to, you could chop up your birch in smaller bits so that it's fully covered by the menstruum. Another thing that I like to do is use a strong blender and blenderize the herb in the menstruum. Just be careful, birch is considered a hardwood, so if you don't have a nice strong blender, it could diminish the blade a bit. You can also use a spoon and just kind of push the herb below the line as much as you can of the menstruum so that most of it is fully saturated, or frequently mix it or shake it up.